Hit that. There we go. Hello guys and welcome to the PiG Daily episode number 17. How to get better micro. How to click faster and make your units do what you want them to do. Awesome. So we've got a bunch of things planned for today. Literally as I'm doing my intro, there's one thing I haven't even written down yet in my notes and it's just occurred to me and I'm like, oh, let's talk about that as well. So being the super organized person that I am, I'm just going to put a little note here saying, talk about click brain connection. And that's something we're going to talk about. But yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out. I do apologize for skipping yesterday's daily. We had a few topics planned out. We didn't quite have the right replays for them, so hopefully we'll be getting to those soon. And then I ended up just coming up with this topic yesterday. I thought this is something which I can do off the top of my head, absolutely passionate about, and in next to no time wrote up a couple pages of notes. So today we're going to be talking about improving your micro, how to get better at it, and I think it's something a lot of players see it as a sort of unattainable goal. They're like, oh, you know, I'm never going to be as fast as Life or Jadong or one of these kind of famously incredibly fast players. And definitely you might not be as fast as like the younger, spammier players like Life who just sit there just mashing their keyboard with 400 actions. But funnily enough, even when you look at like the players who are known as the fastest, they miss things. They miss a lot of things that go on. And a lot of their actions are really superfluous. They're not really necessarily doing anything. Interestingly enough, there's also these kind of mechanical gods who are known for their impeccable micro, like innovation on the other side, who, when you watch him play first person, you're like, he's actually not playing that fast. Flash as well had very good micro. He might not have been the most famous for his micro, but when you watch him play, it's some of the most calm and deliberate first-person view play that you ever see. He definitely does speed up to very hectic speeds when he needs to, but often it's a lot more about accuracy over being able to click many different things. And it's not necessarily about being able to just instantly move your mouse around in the most crazy, dexterous manner, adapting to the situation, but it's about having the right techniques in place so that you've practiced the main ways to deal with certain situations. So when your back's up against the wall, you can kind of dig into your bag of tricks, pull out something useful and say, hey, I know exactly how to micro in this situation. Because StarCraft 2, it's a bloody fast-paced game, and yeah, if you don't have your kind of responses like pre-prepared, it's something where a lot of players are like, oh, I'll just learn micro kind of in the fights, and you kind of can, but I think the number one thing we see is players miss-microing and like just running their units around unnecessarily, trying to do too much focus fire, or pretending it's Warcraft 3 and they're trying to pull back every single unit that's getting damaged and getting low on hit points, which is not usually micro that's worth doing in StarCraft 2. So we're going to go through kind of, I guess, first of all, the first techniques, the most important techniques in terms of how to use our mouse, first of all, and how to kind of have the best settings possible. And then we're going to talk a bit more about the different techniques in terms of how to box the unit specifically, different situations where you want to apply different types of micro. And then we're going to talk about spellcasters and then we'll go through a few examples of units as well, and I'll show you guys how to actually practice it. We've also got something very special planned. So at the end of today, when the show finishes, I'm actually going to try and get every single person in chat that's watching the show to hop into a chat channel and practice, even if just for 5 or 10 minutes. So going to get everyone to hop into a channel and basically say, look, anyone who actually wants to put exactly what we just talked about into practice, hop into this channel. I'll pair people up and we'll just get you guys to go ahead and, you know, practice out some micro versus each other. So to start out, before we get into all the advanced different micro things and hop into the custom map, let's talk about mouse control. One of the most important things is you being able to use your mouse accurately. We're going to talk more and more about that once we get into game, but first of all, let's talk about mouse settings. You really want your mouse to be comfortable. Now, if we go in-game, first of all, you've got your menu. So, mouse menu, I actually turn off mouse sensitivity. I don't like to use the mouse sensitivity here, but otherwise, you know, you can change this and adjust this if you really need to. But what I prefer people to use is to rely on kind of their DPI on their mouse as the thing they need to adjust. So something else which is very important is actually mouse scroll speed. Why the hell is this on 50%? Oh, wow, this is from when King Kong was on my account, I think. Almost every pro gamer is going to use like 90 or 100%. This isn't so much to do with micro, that's just a general mechanical thing, but this automatically, when you start out, is on 20%. So you always want that minimum 50%, and most players use very, very high. So back to mouse, there's not much to change in here. It's literally just this. I mean, I would always turn off things like reduce mouse lag, because that can drastically reduce frame rate. I don't know. I just figure anything that's going to kind of mess with my mouse possibly, I want to get rid of. Enable mouse wheel zoom. That's something I turn off usually as well, unless I'm kind of casting, because it can be annoying if you're accidentally zooming in when you're trying to micro. But that's cool. There's not too much to change there, is there? There really isn't. So what we're going to actually do is, let me change up my scene a bit so you guys can see. You want to go into Windows, and you can find most of these settings in Mac, but in Windows, if you just go, if you're on like Windows 8, just search Control Panel, and within Control Panel, search mouse. Now I'm on Windows 7, so I can just type mouse in, because Windows 7 is actually intelligently designed. So yeah, once you get your mouse properties menu, this is really important. You want to open it up, ignore all this stuff, and you want to go to pointer options, and this is the menu that you want. And we're going to go select pointer speed. Now, personally, like I said, I like everything to be neutral. So I turn off sensitivity in game, and then I put this as neutral as possible in Windows so that I can let my DPI settings on my mouse change it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 11. So that's smack bang in the middle. That's how I like to do it. And enhanced pointer precision is automatically turned on when you're in Windows. That's actually mouse acceleration. What it does is it actually modifies the way your mouse works. So what it does is it means as your mouse moves, it starts speeding up. So the faster you move your mouse, then the more it speeds up, giving you inconsistent movement. And this is something which is on by default in Windows, and it's one of the worst crimes to people's wrist problems, especially gamers' wrist problems, that Microsoft has ever implemented, because I'd say over 90% of gamers play with this turned on all the time. And there's so many people out there complaining about wrist issues and this sort of stuff. And it's like, turn off your mouse acceleration. Because it just doesn't help. It makes it inconsistent. Now, keep in mind, I'm saying you should probably turn this off. I'm not saying go turn it off right now, and then your mouse might feel uncomfortable and you can't use it anymore. And you're like, oh, this is crap. Why did PiG tell me this? Always use your own judgment. Remember, the human body is capable of learning anything. Like you could have a coconut, which you've somehow put some wiring into, cut out a handhold, and you stick your hand inside the coconut, and that's how you play StarCraft. You've got a coconut mouse, and you could still be a pro gamer, because the human body and the human brain is friggin' amazing. You can learn how to do anything, no matter how much you're handicapped. The thing is, how much do you want to handicap yourself? So keep in mind, some pro gamers actually do use mouse acceleration. There's a few freaks out there. I love to make fun of them because I'm friends with them, but Drogo, Bunny, Baby Knight used it as well. There's 1 or 2 Counter-Strike pro gamers who I think use it as well. But for the vast majority of players, they're like, always turn that setting off because they know it's going to give them consistent movement, which means their muscle memory can develop a lot easier. On that same regard, we said, well, DPI is something you should change. There's going to be a nice article which Risk is actually writing at the moment. Cool guy in the community. He's been hitting up pro gamers on Twitter, talking about that in more detail. But just to give my own opinion, somewhere between 400 or 600 and 1000 is usually the healthy range for DPI for pro players. Now keep in mind, it might be different for you. If you're not playing 8 hours a day, maybe you're not going to be able to learn to move the mouse on that more slow, precise rate. Maybe you're happy with your 2000 DPI. But I would really suggest people steer away from the 4000 DPIs, the like absolutely crazy settings, especially if they're only moving their wrist like this much. And it's like the cursor's darting to the other side of the screen. The cursor's darting to the other side of the screen. If you're like only moving your mouse that much and that's happening, what's going to happen in a game like StarCraft where you've got to do lots of actions is you're going to end up with these like very jagged motions where you're like really tensing your hand up unnecessarily, and you're trying to like do these ultra controlled small movements, and that can lead to a lot of hand problems. I've talked to a lot of pro players who, I'd say in the foreign scene, it's only really in the last 2 years that everyone's really started talking more about mouse control and all these different issues, and RSI has started becoming a much bigger thing. And I know a lot of players who started to get a lot of pains or RSI or carpal tunnel. And after swapping to a lower DPI, being more controlled in their motions, and also letting their hand do a full movement. So even if they're doing things fast, their hand's going through a full movement. They're not having to tense it up to try and get these kind of very unnatural, tight, controlled movements out. And as a result, their DPI, their wrist issues have improved. So that's something to keep in mind for everyone. Lower DPI is generally good if you are considering changing your sensitivity a lot. You can either do it the way I did it, which is you just go, I used to use about 2000 DPI, 1800, and I dropped down to 800 now. And I did it all in one go. And the first week and a half, like, I could not micro properly. But I learned it very quickly. Snoot, on the other hand, used to use 1900. He swapped down to 600, and he did it just 200 DPI at a time. He'd go 200 DPI, a few days later, he'd drop it another 200 DPI. So it was more of a gradual learning process. So do whichever way makes sense for you. Just keep in mind, if you have wrist issues at all, or if you really struggle to accurately move your mouse to where you want it to go, take a look at your mouse settings. See if there's something you can change to aim for precision rather than just blatant speed. At first, when you slow down your sensitivity, you'll be a little bit slower, but as you get better at it, you'll realize that you get more actions done because there's no misclicks, there's no wasted actions. So that's everything to do with mouses, mouse speed, and all that sort of jazz. I did want to talk about that at the beginning of today's stream because it's so important. But let's dive on into game now. We want to talk about different micro techniques. Now, the first thing you want to be doing is, if you want to be practicing micro, so let's take a look. You want to practice your micro. What you want to do is you want to grab a buddy. We've got awesome, beautiful mod, Yanis, aka Eon Blue here. And we're going to go arcade, and this is the best thing you can do. And you want to type in lot of unit tester. And there's a bug, which only I get, or some people get, not very many, where it's going to come up with all these different map names. And you're like, what? It doesn't even have a map there. All these images are actually wrong. If you actually hover over it, you'll see it comes up with the actual name of the map. And we want lot of unit tester online 1.3. There's a reason it's rated 5 stars over 61 ratings. It's because it's a good map. It's not made by a 6-year-old who's like just created some map where when you go in there, I don't know, there's some creep tumors shaped like boobs or something like that. This is actually a good map, which is really cool. So create game, and we will dive on into there. So arcade, lot of unit tester, and it's the online version 1.3, which as of today's date is the current version. So we're going to start this up, and this is the best little arena for you to practice your micro in. Yeah, you guys, if you guys don't get like the boob creep tumor joke, then you didn't play enough Warcraft 3 custom games back in the day, because there was a lot of messed up maps in that game. So what you want to do is you want to click terrain and then field, and that's going to give us a nice big playground to play around with, and we can start creating some different units, and you can hold down shift to build 5 at a time. So I mean, we're going to start out just with some basic compositions, and I can create the units for both sides. You can go into like your options and swap which player is controlling which and all this sort of stuff. And you can always just reset it, add upgrades, all sorts of stuff. But for the moment, it's like, okay, cool. I get some roaches, Eon Blue gets some roaches, and we can start playing around with different things. So let's take a look at our notes and let's see what is the first thing we want to be talking about. Drum roll. Oh, click brain connection. So this is that point which occurred to me just as we were loading up. And this is the idea of, okay, you know when you see people spamming, right? And you're like, especially when someone's new to StarCraft, they're always like, why the hell does that person just keep clicking? They're like, what are you doing? Like, seriously, you're just clicking in the same spot. Just click once. Why do you need to click so many times? And what these people don't realize is that they're watching someone do this, right? And each click to them is a process. Every single click is a process. However, to an experienced StarCraft player, you're not thinking about these clicks at all. They're not taking up brain power. They're not even really taking up any muscle power. All you're thinking is, I want the roach to move towards my mouse cursor. Whereas a rookie player is going to be thinking this, move there. move there. So I want to go here. So I've got to right click. And what you see is they have to think about every single action. And for them, they probably also have to think about clicking. They're not used to just spamming clicks. So for them, it's actually difficult to do this. Now, what we're coming across here is simply streamlining your brain's processes. By practicing whenever you're microing units, just click, 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 click. This is something you do if you're trying to really improve your micro and your ability to smoothly move units around. Because you're saying, my finger, I'm going to, first of all, mechanically, I'm going to train this finger to just be like, click, 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 click. And like, it seems really dumb. And you're like, but it's actually hard to do that if you're not like a super experienced gamer, right? To just go click, 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 click. I'm sure if you play Dota or something, you'll be fine with your your right click. If you played a lot of competitive RTS, you'll be fine with your right click. But if not, you're really going to struggle with that. So doing that, it trains it so you can just do that constantly. And then it also means so that whenever you're controlling units and microing them, you literally don't even think about it. Every single time, you just hold down that click and move your cursor around. And the only thing that your brain actually has to process is the idea of you want the units that you have selected to follow your cursor. And that's it. So in this case, just wherever we want the roach to go. Right now, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about click here, click there. This is just what you'll see me doing every time I'm microing units. And that's something which is very important. We're removing the connection between clicking and it actually being a process. And we're saying this is just something you do. So getting used to spamming those clicks is something which is really useful, helps you out a lot as a player at the very beginning stage. And it's something which you'll see advanced players do and a lot of players don't understand why they're doing that. It's because they're not even thinking about it. It doesn't drain any actions or thought from them, but it's stressful to a rookie player. It's stressful to someone who sees each click and each action as something that has to be thought about and fully processed. It's like, oh, why are you doing so many things? But part of getting good at StarCraft is streamlining those brain processes. So you're like, oh, it just happens. It's learning how to do things in a way where they're just kind of built into your understanding of the game and you don't have to think about it or absorb them. So I think that's something which is really useful for us to talk about at the start there. Now let's go in and let's talk about boxing micro, which is the main thing you need to be good at in StarCraft. It's boxing your units. So it's dragging a box and then doing something with them. Let's say we just want to spread our units out. Box click, box click, box click, box click. We spread some units out. Oh, there's banelings coming in? Box click, box click, box click. This is your #1 form of micro. Now, you can do this in a line as well. A lot of people talk about line boxing. It's just where they go like that. It's the same thing. It's just a very thin box. That's what a line is. Boxing micro isn't the key to 99% of what you need to be doing in StarCraft. Now, this is part of the reason why, of course, in... Here we go. Give myself some drones. So in Wings of Liberty and HOTS especially, and to a lesser extent, Legacy of the Void, because there's less downtime, at the start of the game, you've got your worker line like this. Now, a lot of players, to get those boxes, notice we've got to be very accurate. I can't be overshooting. Otherwise, if I'm trying to spread these roaches out, we're going to be doing it like this. We're going to be going... And we're just kind of contradicting the orders because we're not accurate. Whereas when I do it properly, there's no overlap. All the roaches are getting separate orders, right? Now this is why you used to always see players dragging boxes at the start of the game. They'd sit there at the start just going box, 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 box. And doing this like really, really fast. Just spamming. And everyone would be like, oh my god, what is wrong with these StarCraft players, man? Stop trying to raise your APM, you freak. No one cares about your APM. And, you know, like any other strategy game, who cares about your APM, man? It doesn't matter. It's about strategy, isn't it? This is about training your accuracy with that mouse. And this is what people used to use to practice it. It was just sitting there in their mineral line trying to accurately drag the box so it would be just around all of the workers. So if we look in game, it'd be me saying, I don't want to drag a box like that. I want to drag a box like this. And they just sit there doing it. And the thing is, a lot of people just start like this. And it's okay to just get used to doing it quickly. It's okay to be a bit inaccurate when you're first improving. But as you get better, you realize that it's like, actually I don't need to be quite so fast. And you're not going to be perfectly accurate. But we can see there I'm improving. I'm kind of like, okay, cool. So we're getting good at dragging an accurate box. Now, what you'll notice here is most of the time, my favored way of dragging a box is bottom right to top left. Why is this important? What if you're down here and suddenly you need to pull these units away from banelings that are coming in? Now my mouse had to move up there and then down. Oh, what if instead we just drag the box from where our mouse is and we just go like that? Rather than going up and then down with it, we just go pull those drones away. This is something which gets so ignored these days, and I see so many players who are only capable of dragging a box from one corner. And that's okay, it's not the end of the world. But if you want to be a super awesome micro baller person that improves and gets amazing, actually trying to just consciously teach yourself to drag from every single corner. You drag from here, here, and here. And this is something I used to do in the early days of StarCraft. And I still feel awkward dragging from the bottom boxes, the bottom left and the bottom right. But top right, top left, both I feel almost completely natural with. So often I'll sit there at the start and I'll do this. Yeah, I think this is my most awkward one, bottom right to top, bottom left to top right. For whatever reason, I just feel super uncomfortable doing that. But if you can at least do it from 2 or 3 different sides, then suddenly you're able to select units so much faster. It seems like such a minute thing. I know there's like probably like 8 people watching or maybe 100 people watching who are just like shaking their head like, no one's ever going to bother doing that. They're like, come on, man. It's something to keep in mind, though. It's these small things which give you edges in StarCraft. And I really think that does actually make a big difference, especially in things like Ling-Baneling battles, where you see players like having to react very quickly and they're like trying to reach to the other side of the units and then pull them back. You know, think of it as like you're sitting there in like a fine dining restaurant or just any restaurant, and you're trying to eat, but for some reason you're trying to eat with your utensils on the other side of the plate, and like you're only allowed to like reach over your food and then feed it to yourself. It's just like, it's just unnecessary awkwardness, and it's weird. So imagine you're in the restaurant of micro. You need some decorum. You need some skills. Come on, feed yourself that good micro. So that's like a little tip there. But generally, it's just boxing micro. Likewise, drones coming. Oh, banelings coming in. Split those drones. You know, there's lots of different ways you can do it. Is that all the points? Accurate boxing takes a lot of time to get used to. Yeah, it takes a lot of time to get used to. It's something you just practice steadily, but keep in mind, all micro is based around this. Every single piece of micro is based around dragging boxes. So let's go into those now. First piece of micro, concaves. Now, concave management is so damn important. So we've got 20 roaches versus 20 roaches here. It's time to actually get Eon Blue to pay his money. You ready? I'm just going to ask him to A-move at me. So, A-move when ready. So I just in a ball. Ball up and A-move. So we're going to make a concave. Oh, whoops, we've got our hotkeys on. Let's fix those up. So because we were a little bit slow to actually tell our units to attack me, that one didn't work out too well. I always hate it when I have the wrong hotkeys on, but hey, whatevs. We're still gonna win the fight, I think. Maybe not actually. Those units kind of ran off. That's cool. Let's do that again. Oh shit. Sorry, dude. That's alright, guys. You missed a roach fight that didn't actually go the way it was meant to, plus me changing hotkey settings, so that's fine. Alright, here we go. Go again. So what we're doing here is that boxing micro, and we're doing it in a really minimalistic way. So notice how we spread out, and look, our guys are going to form a concave here, just using some boxes to do that at the start. And no other micro involved, just spreading out and giving ourselves the concave. Our, just chat teasing me about my overlay, sorry guys. We're going to see that 20 roaches versus 20 roaches. We're going to win the fight with 6 roaches remaining. So that's about 30%, roughly 30% more useful. So this is your number one way of microing. Now, sorry, it's not your number one way of microing. It's one of the most common forms, especially in ranged unit versus ranged unit battles, but even versus melee units. Having that concave is so important. So what you want to imagine is you want to have a perfect banana moon. Basically, notice we're just trying to form a crescent with him at the apex, the center point of our banana moon. This is the banana moon micro. It's very advanced. It's not really very advanced, but honestly, you want the banana moon concave of death, and if you micro it properly and you get the full banana moon concave of death, you will destroy them. We had a pretty decent banana moon this time around, and you can see that we're going to survive with 7 roaches. So that's not bad, man. 7 roaches out of 20. We're getting really good there. That's actually going awesomely for us. So you always want to aim for that banana moon, right? You want to say we want to set up a crescent, just a beautiful crescent, and we want them to attack into the crescent. So you got your, I don't know, my arm doesn't make the best banana moon of death, but you want them to come into the middle. Your wingtips kind of wrap around them. You've got ultimate surface area. So not only do you have every roach attacking much faster than your opponent, but they're also struggling to attack because their units are in a ball. They're going to get stuck behind each other as they try to form a battle line. They're going to all be headbutting into each other and kind of running about and messing everything up. Yeah, so they're going to be doing that. Also, think about it in terms of if you've got the arc and they're in the convex, their units at the front are getting hit by more units, right? Because your guys are kind of wrapped around them. So you've got more surface area. More surface area means the front of their line is going to crumble a lot faster, which means the sooner units start to die, the army starts to lose damage output. Even if you're both dealing the same damage, if one player, like overall, if one player has the damage spread out across everyone equally, so no one's dying, and the other guy is automatically just hitting those units in the front center, so their roaches start dying, the player whose roaches start dying, their damage output starts dropping. And that means they're even slower to start killing the roaches, their opponent. So one player's damage will actually stay higher. It'll start going down very slowly, and the other player's damage starts going down quicker and quicker as their roaches die. So that's actually really important. Concave management is one of the most important things. Now I'm showing this in roach versus roach because I want to see the same units versus the same units. So you can see just how big of an advantage that is. 30, 40%, bloody huge advantage. But you use this in marine tank versus marine tank. It is so important. Stalkers versus stalkers. Even then, even blink stalkers versus blink stalkers, concave is important. Any big ranged army versus any big ranged army, concave is the most important thing you can be thinking about. So let's hop into game. Let's do this one more time, and let's talk about the idea of actually putting this into practice. My God, I'm going to set up a hotkey at the end of today. Like a special hotkey. I'm gonna have a button on my desk so I always hit the right scene because apparently I just keep hitting the wrong one lately. That's atrocious. Yeah, I fixed it. Sorry guys. Alright, so we've got the roaches here. Now notice we're talking about the banana grin moon of death. So you want it to be like the banana grin moon of death. And you can think about how perfect you can make this, right? Like you could sit here and do this all day, and you could make the perfect concave. Unless you're watching TLO play, you're probably not going to see someone bother putting that much finesse into controlling their units because it's not really worth the APM most of the time, right? So it's like, okay, cool, we created this, and then like your opponent just like attacks up to the north, and you're like, oh shit, we gotta change position. You know, this is just silly. So realistically, you don't have the time to do that in a game. You don't have the APM to do that. So instead, you want to come up with simple techniques to make things easier for yourself. And we talked about boxing micro, and that's basically what that was just then. We're doing individual boxes. But instead, you want to simplify it, and 90% of the time, your micro can be solved by 2-box micro. And this is a term I kind of coined and always throw out there because it's just such a good way of talking about it, where basically you say, normally in game, I've only got time to drag 2 boxes. So if I want to split up, I don't have time to set up a perfect concave. I'm just going to go box click, box click. And you might think that is the ugliest banana grin moon of death I've ever seen. That's literally just 3 bunches of units. That looks stupid. But let's have him attack, and all we're going to do is attack, move, in response. And watch how the units automatically form a concave. It might not be as perfect as if we set it up, but it's still pretty damn good. The unit's AI will automatically fill in the gaps, as long as we've spread them out in the rough sort of concavular format. I just made up a word, concavular. And oh my god, this was 20 roaches versus 20 roaches again. And in fact, we have survived with 11 roaches. I'm sorry, I need to like put this back on my face. 20 roaches versus 20 roaches, and I've survived with 11. The only micro I did was box click, box click. That's the only advantage I had over my opponent. Identical units, identical upgrades. That's friggin' massive. I hope people are as excited as I am when they first realize the power of the concave. Like, oh my god, praise the concave! Because seriously, it's huge. So getting used to that 2-box micro is such an easy way to do it. We're going to dive back into game one last time on concaves before we move on. I've said, okay, go. So he's going to attack. We're going to go box click, A move. And one more time we see that without having to have crazily fast mouse speed, yes, we had some nice accuracy there, but we're going to form a nice concave. We're going to take a pretty good fight. I doubt we'll have 11 roaches again because that was actually just godlike, but we're still going to crush the fight pretty one-sidedly. 10 roaches remaining, 9 roaches remaining, and it looks like we're going to stop on 9 roaches remaining, or 8. Still 8 out of 20, massive. That's about 40% more efficient. Obviously these roaches are a bit damaged, but that is absolutely insane. So remember guys, you don't need it to be pretty. You want to aim for the banana grin moon death thing. And usually you just opt for my units are kind of spread out and they'll automatically form a sort of demented banana moon grin of death thing. Yeah. Okay, we're going to stop with the banana grin moon of death thing now. And we're going to move on to the next thing, which is spreading, which uses the same micro. So we're going to reset here in game and I'll show you guys how to do that as well. And this is also to do with the same micro. So if we clear all the units, we go back, and I'm going to give myself some Marines. We're going to just give ourselves, like, I don't know, 30 Marines, 40 Marines. And the Marines are going to have Stim. Zerg is going to have Baneling Speed. So we're going to have, like, 30 Banelings versus 40 Marines. There we go, simple enough scenario. And it's going to be the same micro in terms of dragging boxes and doing clicks. We're not going to stim it first, but basically it's just spreading your stuff out. We don't have combat shields. And you spread your stuff out. Now, let's do that again. Now, something else you can do is you can still think about the banana grin moon of death. So, what you want to do... Whoa, sorry guys, using wrong hotkeys. Okay, so you still want to try and spread in a concave. The reason is, if we can see where that concave is running out, right? As the units run into the middle, you've got maximum firepower coming in from all angles. Same way a concave works in ranged versus ranged. Now, obviously, in this case, you still need to spread a lot more. It's not just about the concave, but you still want to have the idea of, let's have a general banana grin moon shape, and that's going to be really helpful to us. So often with banelings, like we don't have a lot of space here, you always want to be pre-splitting as much as possible, or having widow mines or some splash damage to deal with them. But it's the same micro. So what we'll often do is we'll go, okay, let's spread back into that concave, but we can leave units spread out as well, just because the way banelings work. And we can add just so much finesse in terms of how much we want to spread out. Now this is something where there's endless levels of refinement in terms of how we want to do it. But often, and we're not going to win this fight, there's no way we can spread in time unless we were a much more experienced Terran player than we are. But we're going to kill most of those banelings, and that's actually a good trade. But it's the exact same micro, box click, box click. So often you want to set this up pre-fight as a Terran. You want to go box click, box click, box click, box click, box click, and you just keep shaving off some of the units. And this is something which players struggle with, but even just going through the practice of doing this, saying I'm always going to set up a pre-split, can make all the difference. And if you want to get super advanced, you can go and do this. But really, is this worthwhile, what I'm doing right now? Well, in a scenario right now where I don't have anything else to worry about, sure. But in-game, you don't always have this. Often, you only have time to spread out and then say, oh, well, they're still a bit clumped up there. And that's all we can do, right? We don't have time to individually spread the Marines out or anything like that. And we see that it still gets the job done. Because most of the time in game, you've got to bounce back to your bases. You've got to go back and get other tasks done. So you've always got to choose for yourself the limit you set on yourself in terms of saying, how much micro is my limit? And you want to have like a general rule. We said it in the concave format. I said, almost every player, the best rule is to do 2 boxes and 2 clicks. You say, if I do that whenever I want to set up a concave, that's all I need to do. Box click, that's it. And that gives a good rule for yourself so that you're not trying to over-focus on micro. A lot of players, when they're trying to work on micro, they're like, I'm just going to get into game. I got my first 30 Marines out. Let's go. And they go to the Zerg base and they're trying to micro every single Marine around. Watch the best players play, and you'll see that they only focus on microing their units when they really need to. And you never want to be aiming for the exact same level of micro they have. It's all about baby steps in StarCraft and kind of improving one thing at a time. And I mean, we call it baby steps. It's baby steps compared to the god of StarCraft who's been playing 50 million games in his life and is winning GSLs and Star Leagues. But for us, it's still always going to be a huge step to take us to the next level. So you always want to say to yourself, look, I'm just going to spend about 6 or 7 boxes at most spreading my Marines, stim them. After that, it's just a move or whatever, hold position, and that's it. We're not going to bother with anything else. We're not going to go back and stare at these units over and over again. We're just going to do that one time and see how it goes. So it's like, all right, I'm going to say 6 boxes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not the best. We kind of panicked there and freaked out. We'll try it one more time. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not perfect, but set that limit on yourself based on your own APM requirements, and remember that that's going to make things quite nice. I also did want to, guys, very quickly talk about Widow Mines while we've got this scenario set up. So the reason for this is a lot of people don't understand how to use their Widow Mines correctly. So I just want to point out this scenario quickly. Actually, let me get rid of some of these banelings. That's too many banelings. You can just click on units and do backspace. Oh, he also needs ling speed. Clever man. Clever man. Alright, so what players don't realize often is how to use their Widow Mines and how to spread them out. I figure while we're looking at this, we might as well look at it. Now, this is what you'll often see from Terran players. They'll say, okay, we want to have a bit of a spread. And we'll spread our Marines out too. Now, sometimes there's even a Widow Mine all the way up here, actually. Yeah, like there. You know, like, okay, so we've got the Widow Mines kind of up front. We've got our Marines spread out. And let's just watch what happens here. We're not going to stim or anything. Now, Terran was always going to win this fight. We had way more units. What you notice, though, is the Widow Mine shots. So I want you guys to watch the Widow Mine shots on the next one. What we're going to be talking about here is, because there's no Marines on top of the Widow Mines, in line with the Widow Mines gunning down the front-running Zerglings, notice how Zerg will always have a few front-running units. And this is kind of the same for Protoss as well. Have you ever thought you'd have the sickest TVP setup, and then like 2 single Adepts are in front of their army, and like your Widow Mine shots just hit them rather than the rest of the Adepts and the rest of the units? If you've got units up front to gun down any front-running units, the Widow Mine will swap targets and naturally select the bigger clump of slower-moving units. So what we want to be thinking about is you always want to have Marines up front on top of the Widow Mines, gunning down the front-running units, so that your first Widow Mines don't, number one, have the shots firing on just lone Zerglings. Number two, they're not firing on Zerglings which are running into your Marines and you're dealing friendly fire. And number three, you're saving your Widow Mine shots to kill the big clump of slow-moving Banelings, which is what the Widow Mines really want to be killing. So let's look in game, and let's do that again. And this time around, we're going to have these Marines. So let's get rid of some of these Marines. We don't need those. And we're going to have these Marines right up front and center, kind of on top of these Widow Mines and like in line with them. And this time you'll see that the front-running Zerglings are going to get gunned down a lot quicker. We're not even stimming. And it kind of worked out. It's always hard with these scenarios to show it exactly perfectly. We'll stim this time and do it one more time. So I think it will give a bit of a better example. Without the stim, the damage output isn't quite the same from the Marines, so they did struggle to kill those Zerglings in time. Let's get these Marines out of there. There we go. Notice the Widow Mines are taking longer to fire. And there we go. We started to see the Widow Mines track onto the later clumps of Banelings. Now, the bigger the battle gets, the more effective that is. Once you get up to like 7, 8, 9 Widow Mines, there's always a bit of randomness with Widow Mines, and there's a huge army of Lingbane. You're always, as long as you've got enough bio to gun down most of the front-running Zerglings, you're going to start getting these money hits with at least 3 or 4 of your Widow Mines, which make the whole battle worthwhile. So it's always about maintaining the proper formation with your units as well. And there's so many specifics to different scenarios, different types of units we could go over. I don't want to talk about every single one of them because then we just, take all day. So I'm going to take a very quick 1-minute break here, guys. This is something I'm trying to start doing. And then we're going to dive into the last bit of the show. So I will be right back. Stay with us and we will get that going. Be right back, guys. 1 second.